Salesforce as a technology? Just put that in the chat for me, please. And I think this is really, really important because it enables us to know how we structure the conversation to kind of make sure that everybody gets something out of this conversation today as well. So like I mentioned, I work for Dkloud Consulting. We help and support organizations to make success of Salesforce. We will talk to you a little bit more about Salesforce. And I think, when I get the speakers to start talking to us, I'll give them that opportunity to potentially give us a little bit of a conversation about what Salesforce is and why it is really, really important for organizations to adapt a technology like that to help them succeed. What I'm also going to say, if you don't mind, guys, is let's just keep ourselves on mute for the period of this. Towards the end of the conversation, we'll open the floor so that people can ask any questions that they have or anything like that. But if you have a pressing question while the session is going on, feel free to just put your hands up, and then we'll give you an opportunity to either add to the conversation or ask a question or something like that. I want to promise you, we're not here to lecture you, tell you how to do your job, or even tell you how to use technology. All we're here to do is to have an open conversation with people. We're open to learn, but we're also open to kind of give you information about what we have learned from working with other similar NGOs that we've seen within Africa as well. Okay. Now, without wasting much time, I would like to go straight into introducing some of the panel that we have today. Actually, let me just quickly do a screen share before I do that, just to show you what we're going to cover today in terms of the agenda and everything. So this is our agenda today. We set this meeting to run for about an hour and a half. We may or may not need to do that. Or go through that. Obviously, we just set it that way to just allow us to feel free to converse and have a proper conversation and that. But, this is going to be the agenda. We're talking about, good intentions and how we scale impact. That's pretty much the conversation here, because we know that a lot of you working for NGOs, one of the things that you all have in common, it doesn't matter if you work for a small NGO or a big NGO. One thing that you have in common is that you're all trying to do good within society with limited resources and with limited time. And what we're here to do today is to see how we can enable you to make that piece of work that you do easy by using a solution like Salesforce, okay? Not complicate what you do, but literally make it as easy as possible by introducing the technology called Salesforce to what you do today, okay? So what I'll do now, I will just go straight in and start to introduce our panel for the day, okay? Now, the first person I'd like to introduce is one of my favorite persons within the Salesforce ecosystem. This lady is a powerhouse. She is a public speaker. She is a keynote address speaker. In fact, she gave us she became our keynote speaker when we had our very first West Africa Dreaming event, which took place in 2024 in Lagos. This was a significant event for us within the Salesforce community. And she was happy to actually take on that task of giving us a keynote speaker. Now, the person I'm about to introduce is a lady called Ursula. Ursula is a senior talent strategist and ecosystem builder. She has over 26 years of experience working within the space, helping grow human potential across Africa. So not just necessarily within Salesforce, but just enabling young people within Africa to grow with technology. Ursula is based in South Africa, and she works with Salesforce as a company. She helps and enables people like us in the community, Salesforce partners, and all of that to build solid relationships with Salesforce. She also goes out into the community, kind of engages with schools, universities, and young people like that, and bring them into the Salesforce ecosystem. So guys, please, let's give a really good welcome and a warm welcome to Ursula Fia. I want to see some emojis going, guys.
Thank you, Ben. That's such a beautiful, beautiful introduction, and very kind of you. And I think most importantly is I'm an African first and foremost, and I do work for an amazing company called Salesforce. And why this conversation is so key and so important is because the power of what the nonprofit community does on this continent is absolutely critical, and it's critical that the impact that all of these wonderful organizations need to drive, we need to make sure that that's materialized It's an absolute pleasure to be with you this evening. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you, Ursula. Really good having you. It's a privilege. Thank you. Right, I will go straight in to introduce the next person, who is Abdullahi Fadalu. Now, Abdullahi works for Site Savers. I haven't met Abdullahi face-to-face yet, but we've had a few engagements. Abdullahi is a very sharp guy, very knowledgeable. Abdullahi works for Site Savers, like I mentioned, and he works in the capacity where he helps with monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And he has over 9 years of experience working within the heart of global health and other neglected sort of tropical diseases that we have in Africa. He brings in a lot of mindset which has to do with data and technology and how you can actually use that to provide measurable impact within the ecosystem as well. So please, guys, if you don't mind, let's give a very rapturous welcome to Abdullahi, who is on the call. Thank you, Abdullahi.
Thank you, Bam. Thank you for that generous introduction. You didn't just introduce me, you framed the conversation in a way that sharpens the focus on what actually matters. Thank you very much, Bam.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You're welcome again. And next person I'm going to introduce is another wonderful guy, Joseph Ame. Joseph works for Hans. That's he's basically the head of monitoring and evaluation at Hans. Like I mentioned to you, I've already told you guys that by coming to this event, you're going to hear from some really important people that have been working within this ecosystem. We're not talking people that just come from a point of view of theory, but these are people that actually work directly for organizations, for end users, and so on and so forth. So there will be a lot of things that you learn from this session today. Now, Joseph is a biomathematician, and he's also a public health specialist as well. He's been working for Hans for quite a few years, and I think you attended the West Africa Dreaming. That was the second one that happened on the continent, which was in Ghana last year. You were there with us, with our team, and yeah, it's really, really good to have you on board, Joseph. Right. Do we have Adaleza on the call? Do you know, Sylvia?
No, we don't have on the call.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just go ahead and introduce Adaleza anyway. So Adaleza is not necessarily one of our speakers today, but I just thought to put her name down because she is the Salesforce account executive for Africa generally. Okay, so what that effectively means is that, if you're looking to build success within your NGO by using or leveraging Salesforce, or if you're even already doing that, Adaleza is a really good person. The reason why it's really good to know her is because she's that person that will support you if you have any issues with, accessing Salesforce or getting an environment that you can use or anything like that. What I'll do as well, I think at the end of the session, if she's not able to join, we'll try and make sure that we provide some information in terms of how you can contact her. I believe that, she's available on LinkedIn and all of that. And I think we'll do the same for all the speakers as well. If you want to follow them on LinkedIn, you want to connect with them and so on and so forth, we'll provide all their LinkedIn handles at the end of the call so that you can follow them and carry on the conversation after this. Okay. Right. So what I'll do then is I'll just introduce myself. So like I mentioned to you earlier, my name is Bamnan. I just wanted to talk a little bit about my public health experience as well. So I am a trained pharmacist. I have also had the opportunity of doing a master's degree in public health, and I had the opportunity of working within public health for a few years here in the UK myself before I decided to venture out into software and IT. And you can see that that's the reason why, for me, I'm really passionate about adding value, to nonprofits and enabling them to kind of succeed with a technology like Salesforce. Because when I used to work for nonprofits, I used to see firsthand how much work we were doing. But the biggest constraint we've always had is always in terms of resources, time, and people that can actually do the work for us. And the moment I came across Salesforce, I just literally became an evangelist, particularly for nonprofits. I'm really happy to talk about Salesforce all day long to nonprofits because of how much it can actually do for them as well. Okay, so I think we've covered that. We've covered the the ground rules in terms of if you have a question, put your hand up, but we'll have questions at the end of the day. I think now we can probably go into the exciting part of the day. And I have a question that I want to put out, and I'm going to put it out to you, Ursula. I think that if you don't mind, I'm sure you don't mind anyway. I'm going to put that question to you first of all. What I would like you to do, Ursula, is if you can just give a bit of an idea to our people here that are attending this event about what is Salesforce. That's the first thing. Why should they care about it? How can it help them within their organizations? I think that's the first thing I'd like you to probably do, if you don't mind.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I think it's a wonderful way to start the conversation. So it was nice to see some of the comments on the chat. So, so let's start with who is Salesforce. And I think that's what's also really interesting, or I think what's important, is to put the context of where we are today in 2026. A lot of how we do business, a lot of how we grow our businesses is through technology. And for those of you that don't know, Salesforce is a global cloud-based software company. We are the largest CRM, customer relationship management platform in the world. Very proud of that. And Salesforce, in essence, makes a software that helps organizations manage relationships with customers, with donors, with partners, with different communities. And really what we're trying to do is have one connected platform. We always talk about Salesforce being a source of truth. And also, how do we have this 360 view of our customer? How do we have this single source of truth that helps us understand what our customer base is? And that might be a donor, it might be a beneficiary, etc. in this particular context. But also, we are cloud computing. We have things like Sales Cloud, which is managing sales pipelines, customer relationships. We've got Service Cloud, which is customer support, case management, Marketing Cloud, campaigns, emails, donor communication, Nonprofit Cloud, which is obviously built for nonprofits and NGOs. Agentforce is our AI-powered automation and intelligent agents, which is all about transforming organizations, and really, really interesting around the revolution, I suppose, that we are seeing in the world of work today through Agentforce and the agentic era. But we were founded in 1999 by Mark Benioff, co-founded by Mark Benioff, and we basically pioneered software as a service. And we have over 70,000 people that work globally for Salesforce. And very importantly is we have something which is called a 1-1-1 model. So we call it our philanthropy model. 1% of our equity, 1% of our product, and 1% of 78,000 people's time is given to the greater good. And our Salesforce.org arm is dedicated to social impact, which serves nonprofits, profits, and educational institutions around the world. So it's a big mouthful. What we need to know is that we need to understand our customers today so that we can grow our businesses and we can have the impact, most importantly, that we want to drive at the end of the day.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Ursula. I'm going to come back straight to you again, just as a segue to the same question. And, because I know you have a lot of experience, you work with multiple different types of organizations, you work with schools, you work with NGOs, you work with universities, and so on and so forth. And a lot of these institutions that you work with, you tend to kind of support them to adopt technology that can help them grow and become better. Now, the question is, in your mind, what would you think is the most misunderstood thing about why NGOs struggle with technology? What do you think in your mind holds them back when they have those kind of challenges?
I love that question, because I think the biggest myth or the biggest challenge around this misconception is that NGOs don't necessarily need technology or they can't afford it. And I think that's really, really not correct. And I think the real challenge is much more nuanced than that. And there's a couple of things. So as I mentioned, technology is a luxury. It's definitely not. often what we find in the nonprofit space is that we sometimes, and I've been part of setting up a nonprofit in South Africa. We modeled it on Teach for America. It's called Teach South Africa. I'm proud to say that nonprofit's been going for 18 years. And I'll lean on some of my own experiences, you know, in terms of when we put the strategy together, and obviously education being, you know, the one tool that can change everybody's lives, you know. So it was really about an intervention into math, science, English within the school system, partnered with the Department of Education. But going back to that, you know, often from a nonprofit perspective, we have this sort of kind of scarcity mindset that was always shaped by, you know, years of donor-driven budgeting, you know. So technology was often seen as an overhead rather than a program enabler. And you know, often a lot of the funding, you know, was, you know, penalized for admin spend, which is where your systems and your data tools and your digital infrastructure obviously was sitting, and those things were ruled out. And I think what's important is that we see that technology is not an overhead, because it is the program today. And without it, you cannot prove impact. You can't track beneficiaries. You can't report to donors, and you can't scale. So, you know, that for me is the first point. The other thing, when we look inside of our nonprofits, very often we run on spreadsheets. And very often you've got that one individual that owns all the IP, or you've got the silo data sitting on this person's computer, or sitting, you know, on this file, and that individual leaves the organization, and we're completely lost and completely, you know, exposed in that regard. And I think that really becomes a huge issue. And so, you know, we have to start to derive and understand what your donors are wanting, what your funders are wanting. And so when we talk about data in a nonprofit space, we also need to look at that single source of truth, that single source of trusted truth for our beneficiaries, and obviously for our program data. And that becomes really important for a funder and for a donor. The other challenge, I think, that holds us back is capacity. Very often we've got small teams. We don't often have a dedicated tech person. And often what we see, you know, you think it's complex in the commercial space. I think we find it even more challenging in the nonprofit space, because you have people that donate their times, or, you know, somebody's working on the system for an hour a week or a day, or you have a dedicated admin, or so you've got this variation that sometimes is a challenge. So capacity is a problem. Skills, very often low digital literacy, possibly amongst some of the staff, and in certain instances leadership. When we look at, you know, the data, and sometimes there's a real fear that you could have data breaches, cloud storage is a problem, donor data exposure. So trust with your data becomes a real issue, and people are afraid that, you know, that can be exposed, or can go terribly wrong if that does go wrong. And also we have change resistance. You know, are leaders comfortable with, you know, how we've always done it, and they want to keep it like that? And we often see, you know, you have the technology, and then people are trying to fix old problems by using a new technology or using a technology. So that understanding of processes and what that needs to look like is really important when you start to bring in technology into the mix. So, you know, and there's a number of different things. Your leadership, often you've got a starter mentality, because a lot of our nonprofits are started by you know, somebody's got a great vision, and sometimes that can be a little bit of a constraint. But I mean, the reality is nonprofits have got to start to make friends with technology, and most importantly with Salesforce, because it is going to transform their organizations. And most importantly, it's going to transform the impact that we want. these wonderful organizations to be able to materialize and obviously for their wishes to come true. Nonprofits in Africa are so important. And when you look at what we are able to do with nonprofits, having a really good understanding of what they need to be doing, what they need to be showing up for their funders and for their donors. Donors want impact. They want to see, has my buck, sort of realized the value that I needed it to do? Has it changed the life of the person that I wanted to change? And the only way that we can speak that language is when we show them the evidence, when we show them the data, when you're able to pull out a dashboard, when we can, have a report, at the press of a button and not spend, 3 days trying to compile data so that we can put a report together. So I think the big thing for me is that there has been a perception of technology, and there is, like I said, there's levels of complexities in the nonprofit space around multiple things, like I said, capacity, change resistance, leadership mindset, etc. But I think the wonderful thing of why conversations like this are so critical is we can really help to shift that mindset around how important technology is for these organizations, and most importantly, it can drive and it can deliver the evidence collection and the impact that people need to see for, so that they can fund more and they can continuously fund going forward into the future.
Amazing. Thanks very much for that, Ursula. In fact, I've taken a few notes, which I'll just kind of read through very quickly. So I think some of the things that, you've highlighted that have stuck out for me. Technology should not be a luxury, okay, or an overhead. It needs to be an integral part of NGOs. Effectively, what that means is the way businesses embrace technology, it's the same way that NGOs need to. That's the same approach, really, because NGOs still run as a business to some degree internally, but outwardly, yes, it's an NGO, right? It's a non-profit, but it has to run internally almost like a business in order for it to be sustainable, in order for it to run properly. So, yeah, I really like that point. Another thing you've mentioned also is, a lot of NGOs are still using spreadsheets or disjointed data, which can be problematic. You can't have that single source of truth. For example, if I'm looking for, a project that we've actually done and I want to get specific metrics, I have to go into different tools to put that information together to hand over to my donors or to even make sense of the data myself. So having a solution like Salesforce that allows you to aggregate everything on the one platform is absolutely brilliant. The other thing that you mentioned, which I think is really, really key, and I think sometimes we underrate, is the issue around trust and data trust. Sometimes we take this thing for granted, like you literally hold people's personal information. We can't afford to play with that data. It's people's lives, it's people's data. It needs to be protected. But that's not even to talk about, donor information as well. It's really, really critical that we use tools and systems that enable us to protect that data in an adequate manner. Another one that you mentioned as well also is that NGOs should make friends with technology, which I've already emphasized, and nonprofits in Africa are so important. I completely agree with that. The reason why I agree with that is that we deal with real problems. We deal with real life issues. So every single dollar, every single $50 that goes into impacting people's life will go a long way. And the more NGOs in Africa can provide donors with actual measurable evidence of what they're doing, the easier it becomes for donors to pour in more money into Africa. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of donors kind of struggle with sending money out or providing money sometimes, and I'm just saying sometimes, because I don't really work on this place, but from my bit of experience, sometimes you just feel like, oh, is this money really making that benefit to the people that actually need it? But if we can show that measurable impact, donors will be very happy to provide resources. And I think one of the ways that we can show donors serious about what services we're providing is the kind of technology you're using as well. So if you're still in spreadsheets and all of that, it can be audited. You can't easily put the information together. If I was a donor, I'd be thinking, I'm not really sure I'm comfortable with the quality of data and how it's being stored as well. So I think thanks very much, Ursula. That was really, really good. I'll come back to you later, Ursula, with a question around, how does Salesforce make it easy for NGOs to quickly get on platform or to quickly have access to this technology? I'll come back to you later on that. But for now, I think I'm going to go to you, Abdullahi. And, so Ursula's actually painted a really good picture to us in terms of, what happens when things go wrong. What would be great, Abdullahi, is if you can just kind of just touch a little bit on, if you can use real life examples, absolutely fine. But what happens when things go right? When NGOs are doing the right thing, they're reporting consistently, they're giving you visibility as a donor organization. Like, what impact does that have from your point of view, please?
Okay, thank you very much, Bam. If you've spent any real time inside donor-funded programs, one thing becomes brutally clear very quickly. Decisions are not made on intentions; they are made on what can be seen, verified, and compared over time. Data consistency and visibility are not nice to haves in quotes, because the entire system depends on trusts and traceability. Donors are allocating finite resources across competing priorities. If your data is inconsistent, you lose comparability. If it is not visible, you lose credibility. Once either of those breaks, funding decisions becomes conservative or shift elsewhere. From Sightsavers work, especially across NTD programs, the lesson is simple. Skill exposes every weakness in your data system. When you are managing multi-district or multi-country intervention, even small inconsistencies compound into distorted coverage rates, unreliable treatment figures, and ultimately flawed program decisions. Take a practical example from a mass campaign. If one district report treatment coverage using projected population while another uses outdated census figures, both may claim some level of percentage coverage might be similar on paper that look consistent. In reality, one may have undertreated thousands of eligible population. So without standardized definitions and visible disaggregated data, that gap stays hidden. The consistency is not just a reporting issue, it's a public health failure. Visibility then becomes the second layer of discipline. When dashboards are shared across implementers, teams, stakeholders, and donors in near real time, behavior changes completely. Data stops being a retrospective reporting exercise and becomes a management tool. Supervisors intervene earlier, anomalies are questioned immediately, and performances is no longer assumed because it is now demonstrated. In one of Sightsavers supported program, introducing a shared dashboard that tracked daily mass campaign progress by ward exposes the pattern where certain areas consistently reported late and with inflated figures. Once that visibility existed, the program shifted from some level of reactive validation to proactive supervision. So coverage improved, not just because funding increased, but because decisions were now anchored in transparent and consistent data. So the real lesson is this: data consistency protects the integrity of your metrics, and data visibility enforces accountability around them. Without both, you are not managing a program, you are just narrating one.
Wow, that is that's amazing. Yeah, thanks for laying that out. I mean, there's so many things you've mentioned. I've missed some of them, but I'm just going to just do a quick recap. You've talked about decisions are made based on measurable impact. You don't make decisions just on a whim, and part of the reason is because limited resources or resources are very highly limited. So as a donor organization, you need to think about the fact that you want to give these resources to organizations that you can actually track the impact and measure some of the things that they're actually doing. You also talked about funding decisions shift very quickly if there are inconsistencies. So which means that, if you funded an organization and when it's time for them to actually give you reports and you see any inconsistencies, in fact, you made a reference to using like outdated census data, and the fact that that can actually have a negative impact on that organization, that is massive. And I think that is really interesting to hear as well. You also mentioned about shared dashboards. The moment you mentioned that, that was that came to my mind was Salesforce, because on the Salesforce platform we have the concept of dashboards and reports and all of that, which are fantastic. In fact, we did a small implementation for another client a while back where their reporting just automatically goes out to their funders every 3 months. So nobody needs to go and sit down and start kind of putting things together or whatever. You can schedule the report on the platform. You create a report there on the platform, but you say, okay, every 3 months on this day, just automatically send this out, and the system just automatically does that. So yeah, thank you very much, Abdullahi, for sharing those. Okay, Ame, that brings me straight to you then. And I have a specific question for you, Ame, and this is, specific to Hans. So I'm just going to read it out. Data visibility has become central to how NGOs prove their value to donors and partners. Okay, from your experience working at Hans, how has having structured, accessible data changed the conversations that you are having with your funders? So now, Abdullahi obviously gave us that conversation from donor side of things. Now I want to come to you because you are an implementation partner. How critical is data or structured data to what you do, and how have you seen that help you within Hans? And can I just say as well, guys, that Ame and Hans are one of our first customers in Nigeria. We did a Salesforce implementation for them, and they have been using Salesforce now for quite a few months. So it will be really great to hear what you have to say, Ame. Over to you. I think you may be on mute. I think you're on mute, actually.
So thank you very much, Bam, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of this important conversation, especially one that focuses on how we move from good intentions to real measurable impact. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please carry on.
Please carry on. So with regards to how structured and accessible data has actually changed the conversations we have with our funders. For us at Hans, we have several funders, which Sightsavers is one. We also have funding from CBM International, the N Fund, BMZ, even the European Union. So for us, the difference is actually very, very clear, because before now, many of our conversations were based on what we believed was happening. But today, with structured data, we're able to show exactly what is happening. And this was actually aided by Salesforce. So instead of saying we are making progress, we can now say this is what we planned, this is what we achieved, and this is where the gaps are. And that changes everything, because conversations have now become more confident, focused, and honest. And founders are kind of more engaging now because they're asking better questions and working with us to improve results. It is not as we used to have it before, that we work based on assumptions. We're actually working based on real evidence that everybody can see on dashboards, and we can actually make improvements in real time. I could remember one of the conversations we had on a call with Sightsavers when we implemented a mass drug administration campaign for NTDs. NTDs is neglected tropical diseases. So we implemented a mass drug administration campaign in Kano State, Nigeria, and we were having a meeting with them, and we pulled up a dashboard to show them what we did, like the processes we followed in the course of monitoring and supervision. And we were showing them where we had issues, communities where we had issues, and what we did in near real time to be able to resolve those issues. And it was really, really interesting. The conversations became more smarter and more focused than just mere assumptions. So it was really, really interesting. And I believe with structured data and with accessible data, our conversation have become more focused and more confident. And it demonstrates a high level of accountability and trust from our funders and donors.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's sorry, I think you may need to mute yourself.
I think you may need to mute yourself.
I can hear myself back.
Hear myself back. Yeah. No.
So can you guys hear the feedback?
Can you guys hear the feedback, or is it just
okay? I think
okay.
Ame, you will need to.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you mute yourself?
Yeah, can you mute yourself a second?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Perfect. Yeah, no, thanks very much, Ame, for that wonderful insight. Some of the things I got from what you mentioned. I think you gave a real life example of a project that you implemented on behalf of Site Savers, where you mentioned the fact that the moment you pulled up, the dashboard, again, the same dashboard conversation, it immediately brings about trust. And I think one of the things you mentioned was that it led to much more smarter conversations as well that you could actually have with them, but you were also able to demonstrate accountability. Because at the end of the day, you're not just accountable for the funds that are being given to you as an organization, you're also accountable for lives, right? Because I think that's the most important thing. There are lots of people at the end of that funding that genuinely need that help. So if you're able to disburse these funds, in a way that makes sense, then, you're instilling confidence to an organization like Site Savers to be able to kind of work with you even more in the future as well. So thank you so much, guys, for highlighting these very, very important points. And I think, Ursula, if you don't mind, I'm going to come back to you again. Now, I know that there are organizations on the call right now that, or people on the call right now that probably don't really know much about Salesforce, or if they want to start out today, like, how do you even start? Like, what does it take? What does it entail? What I would like you to do, Ursula, is if you can just take the next few minutes, just for an NGO starting out from zero, they don't have a CRM, they don't have any structured data system. What is the most realistic and honest starting point that you would recommend to an organization like that so that they can grow within the next few months?
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I think just want to add to Ame's comments around, the fact that you move away from assumptions. And when, you have data that is a source of the truth, it actually is completely changing how we exist, not only commercially, but certainly in the nonprofit space. And it really, really, with data, you can fix quickly, you can address quickly, you can intervene quickly, you can celebrate, you can, so that really, really, really reflected with me. So thank you for sharing that point. So for the nonprofits on the call that are thinking about technology and thinking about this thing called Salesforce, there's something that before we even go into the Salesforce or into any technology, there's something I think that's really important for organizations to think about. And we see that, in a lot of industries or in a lot of organizations using technology, 20% is the use of the technology, 80% is the organization itself. Yeah. Which brings us to a topic of readiness. So, I think the first and the most important thing that organizations need to talk about and need to discuss is, how ready are we for this shift? How ready are we for the changes? Because when we start to look at anything, before we even look at the technology, we have to look at what is the problems that we're trying to solve. What is it that we need the technology to help us with? And it's not a technology conversation. It's actually a problem, or it's that impact discussion that becomes so important. And, we need to remember that any organization is always going to work on people, process, culture. And when we talk about that readiness factor, before I go into the details of what Salesforce offers, we also need to know, that there are going to be sometimes some impediments to this change process that is going to completely change how we exist and what we do. And often we find issues with people, nobody told me, how I had to use this, and, suddenly you get, a whole lot of end users that, are sort of anti, and you really have to make sure that you've got those end users really buying into this problem that we're going to solve, and that it's not just it's not a technology issue, it's about us reaching this vision and this impact that we want to see at the end of the day. The other thing when we talk about the readiness is, very often, and I mentioned it earlier, very often organizations want to use technology for broken processes that are already in place. So often we need to think about, what is this process redesign that we need to be looking at? So if we're going to enhance our business or our nonprofit, and I'm going to call it a business because it is a type of a business, if we're going to enhance it, if we are going to be better, what are the processes that we need to be thinking about? You don't want to take technology to use and to fix or to supplement broken processes. Okay, so that's a really, really important thing for us to think about. How do we reconstitute what we are currently doing so that it's bigger, better, faster, and all of those amazing things? Yeah. And then from a culture point of view, we need to make sure that, very often in the past, we've been speaking about data. Data was for the donors. Data was not necessarily for us within the NGO. So we also need to understand that we working within the nonprofit space, it can be very empowering. It can be really, really important when there's a really good, succinct feedback loop from a data perspective that not only goes to your donors and your fundraisers or your funders, but most importantly, it helps us in terms of how we are doing things and business from a business point of view, from a process point of view. So my first point is this readiness factor. Are we ready? What do we want to solve using technology? And that's the most important thing, because it's that problem that needs to drive the technology at the end of the day. So in comes Salesforce. As I mentioned, we've got this amazing, philanthropy model, which we call our 111. And it really is remarkable. And I think that Salesforce is probably, the number one platform that's used globally in educational institutions and in nonprofits, because we so strongly believe in the power of what a platform can do to solve the problem of that educational institution or of that NGO. So the first thing we need to know is, in the world of Salesforce, everybody's welcome. Now, when we start to open up the door of a lot of technologies, very often a lot of technology training and access to the know-how with that technologies, there's a cost to training and all of those kind of things. I think the first thing you need to know is that the door is wide open for you. Why do I say wide open? Because the first thing we love to do is we have something which is called the Power of Us program, where we offer 10 free licenses for any qualifying nonprofits. It's not a trial, it's not a pilot, it's free permanently. We give 80%, up to 80% discounts for additional licenses, products and services. And you have access to Nonprofit Cloud, which is under our industry umbrella, but it's fully built sector specific. And that's what's important, is that we've really gotten under the bonnet to understand the business model for a nonprofit. What are the things that you need to be, what are the buttons, not literally, but what are the things you need to be pressing that are going to talk to you getting more money to do and to solve for the problems that you want to solve and the impact of those beneficiaries at the end of the day. So you have access to this amazing sector-specific platform. As I said, with your 10 free licenses, or 80% discounted on additional licenses. So that's really at a fraction of the commercial costs that we do charge commercial entities. And really, it's a fantastic opportunity. So that's the first thing, is the Power of Us program. I started to talk a little bit about learning. The other thing, and our learning platform, is something which we call Trailhead. And we actually call it our hidden superpower. But Trailhead is our free online learning platform, and it's genuinely world-class. So the biggest thing, when you talk about the world of Salesforce, the big thing we need to understand is that in the world of Salesforce, it's called Salesforce. I like to call it the new world of work, because one of the important things about Salesforce is that we have a new release every 4 months. So when I say a new release every 4 months, you buy a subscription. We are continuously looking and working and solving. We actually say we exist for your customers, okay? We exist for your beneficiaries. We exist for your donors and for your funders. And what we do with the subscription model, every 4 months, there is a new release. There's improvements, there's innovation, there's new development, okay? So you buy a license, and we are going to make sure that you have the latest and the greatest at your disposal. And in order for you to maximize having access to this new release every 4 months, it is important that you have a new relationship with learning. And that's why I talk about Trailhead being our online learning platform. But basically, there's hundreds of free modules, trail mixes, from a complete beginner to an advanced, administrator, for argument's sake. You have access to all of the learning. You can learn at your own pace. You can learn on a device. You can learn on a laptop. You can learn on a computer. You can learn on your mobile device in your own time. We've gamified the learning. You obviously have different credentials. You've got certifications. We've got super badges. Obviously, a big movement in the world of Salesforce, customer relationship management platform, is the fact that we've now got AI agents, and we call it Agentforce nonprofit. So you've got your business model of a nonprofit on steroids now, with the agentic era in play, and with our AI agents. So we are teaching you how to use that. We're teaching you what you need to do. And like we say, whether you are, an end user, or whether you're an administrator, or whether you're a developer, okay, you have access to all of it. Architecture, everything. You have access to that for free on Trailhead. And there's some amazing nonprofit learning trails. So, honestly, the learning for me, and that is so synonymous with how we need to be relevant in this day and age, is that we have to completely have this new relationship with how we learn. And we have to have a new relationship with access to the information that is so readily available for us, so that we can obviously really put our organizations on steroids, and most importantly, derive the outcomes of our vision of problem solving, and, sort of the impact that we want on our beneficiaries. The other thing is we have the nonprofit and the NGO community groups. And that is set up by the ecosystem. It's not, we support it, but it's genuinely set up, by anybody that uses Salesforce. And I currently work with the nonprofit community group in Johannesburg, because we feel very strongly the entity, the legal entity in South Africa, we oversee Africa. And it's really important that nonprofits work in Africa. And so we've made a conscious decision that we really want to support, the nonprofits in whatever shape and form we can. So a community group is a wonderful, wonderful space and a resource for each and every one of you to be able to go and learn and have access and discussion and dialogue. And what do you do? And how did you fix that? Because we believe the ecosystem is such a powerful, powerful space. And, the other thing with our 1-1 model is we have a social impact commitment that we have globally. And, I said 1% of our product, 1% of our time, 1% of our equity is given to the greater good. And that means any one of us who works for Salesforce needs to give 7 days of community service. So that would be me sitting here on a webinar, having a wonderful conversation with each and every one of you. Or it could be somebody that's in a classroom teaching. It could be somebody that's even planting a tree, because we've also, got huge environmental and sustainability goals that, we think and we classify as the greater good. So, there's access through the Power of Us program for free licenses. You've got Trailhead, where you can learn, where you're not excluded. You form this new relationship with learning, and you have access to the latest and the greatest, irrespective of what role you have within the organization. You have your community groups, and very importantly, the ability to access the social impact commitment that each and every one of us have made to the global ecosystem out there.
Wow, this is amazing. Thanks very much, Ursula. You've touched. Sorry, Karen.
You've got partners. You've got your beautiful partners, and implementation partners are such an important part of our breath. We can't breathe without partners. We sell licenses, and our implementation partners are, sort of one and one of the same. So that is really, really important. And like I said, most importantly is with this new state of play around Agentforce and AI agents, we feel very strongly about, how we take that into the nonprofit space and put your organizations and how you do business, how you build your funders, how you impact your beneficiaries, how we take that on steroids, literally. So there's so much on offer for those on this call that are not yet familiar with what Salesforce can do for their different organizations.
Amazing. And, just to, buttress on what Ursula said, to be honest with you, Salesforce is one of those platforms that once you get engaged with it, I don't want to say it's addictive, but, especially when it comes to learning the solution, it's such a beautiful solution to learn. I mean, I started on my technology journey learning Java, which is just really boring. I found it was really difficult to learn. But the moment I got introduced to Salesforce, I literally dropped everything. I was a pharmacist. I was practicing here in the UK. I literally dropped that and just focused on this, because I just found it like really easy to learn, the way the platform is structured and so. But I could just genuinely see the value that you can give to NGOs like yourselves, for companies like really, really fast. Because you don't have to go and build the back end and build the UI and build this and build the automation separately. Everything is on one platform. We just click and drag. You can build applications really, really fast. And I'm talking about scalable organizations. Think about this. 90%, I'm not sure if this statistic is still right or it's changed, but close to 90%, if not more, of Fortune 500 companies use Salesforce in one shape or form. So you're talking about the Amazons, the Googles, the Apples of the world. They all use Salesforce in one way or the other. And what Salesforce is doing is they're taking the power of that platform and making it free. 10 licenses for free to nonprofits, just to kind of enhance your ability. And that shows you, how valuable you are within our ecosystem. I don't think I'll be able to touch on everything that you've mentioned, Ursula, because I think one of the things you mentioned really, really important is readiness. I completely agree with that. Before you even think about implementing any software solution, not even talk about Salesforce, you need to be ready. You need to think about, what problems are we trying to solve? And I think, Ame, I'll come back to you later, so you can maybe just touch a little bit on that. But you need to think about what are the problems that you want to solve, first of all, before you even engage with it. And then, of course, Ursula, you mentioned about, it's not just about the technology, it's about the business problem. Then the technology comes in. Once you isolate and define the business problem, the technology will be able to solve it, especially Salesforce as well. And it can do that like really, really quick. You talked about the 1-1-1 model, where Salesforce gives 1% of their revenue, 1% of their time, 1% of their product to good causes, like to NGOs, literally. So Ursula being here, she's been sponsored by Salesforce to come here and talk to us for free. That's part of it. Do you see what I mean? So that's really, really amazing. I mean, we as a company are adopted the 1-1-1 model as well. You know, we engage with NGOs as much as we can. We run events in the communities. We go to orphanage homes. We go to schools. We do free events. We do football tournaments. There's quite a lot that we do within the community to kind of push that forward as well. You know, like you mentioned as well, Ursula, the door is always open. You know, that's one good thing with Salesforce. Just the door is literally open. You know, there's absolutely no excuse. There is no better time to learn a new technology than now. This solution is online. As long as you have access to the internet, you have a mobile phone, or you have a tablet, or the platform is free. You can go to Trailhead and start learning Salesforce today. You know, really, really amazing. What else? You talked about the NGO community. I think I'll just touch on that and probably stop. So NGO community, really, really important. We've just started a small one at the moment. We're looking to kind of scale that across Africa. And I think if you guys don't mind, please, if you've not registered to join this event, it just means that we don't have your email. If you can share your email in the chat, we'll probably put you as part of that community that we're trying to build, because the conversation is not just limited to Salesforce. It's about technology. We want people to be talking to each other. We want to be able to talk to you. We want to see how we can help and support you. So please and please, if you haven't if you haven't registered for the event, feel free to just put your email here, and the guys on the team will reach out to you. And then the last thing that also you mentioned, which I think I can't skip, is AI. You know, Salesforce is really big on AI. NGOs do a fantastic work. I think it absolutely just makes sense for us, or it just makes sense that now with the help of AI, it can do a lot of repetitive tasks for you on platform, and that saves you the time to then be able to spend much more time with your beneficiaries and add more value to them. So I think with that, I will probably come to you then, Abdullahi. I have a question for you, Abdullahi. So for an NGO, so especially now that Ursula has kind of touched on readiness, how do you start, and so on and so forth, right? From the point of view of funding organizations, if an NGO wants to build a data culture that will sit really well with funders, right? Something that you can actually trust genuinely. What are the sorts of things that are absolutely important and cannot be missed? So basically what I'm saying is, you have an NGO, they genuinely want to adopt a solution that can help them curate their data in a way that will be acceptable for you, in a way that will build trust, in a way that will build confidence. What are the key, most important things that you think they should not skip? And like I mentioned earlier, please feel free to give any real life examples, of course, without mentioning people or whatever, but just any examples that will enable people to paint a really good picture will be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Bam. A few factors consistently drive funding decisions. First is credible performance against outcomes, not just outputs. It's easy to report activities completed or people reached. What matters is whether those translates into meaningful change. For example, in a mass campaign context, reporting numbers of tablets distributed is a weak evidence. Showing verified treatment coverage against a defensible denominator with independent validation, or DQA backing, that's data quality backing, is strong evidence. Better data system, this by making your results auditable rather than declarative. Second is data integrity and consistency over time. One good report doesn't win funding. We look for patterns. Are your indicators stable across reporting periods? Do your numbers reconcile across tools and levels? Organizations that maintain consistency signals, strong internal controls, better data system, reduces noise. You know, sometimes some of our data have a lot of noises, so we can see real trends instead of fluctuation caused by poor measurements. Third is the ability to diagnose and adapt. This is where many organizations lose ground. We fund programs operating in complex environments. Things will go wrong. The question is whether whether we detect issues early and respond intelligently. If your data shows that you identify low coverage in specific maybe districts or wards, mid-campaign, not at the end of the campaign, but mid-campaign, and took corrective actions that improve results towards the end of the campaign. That's a strong signal of operational maturity. Data here is not just evidence of performance, it's evidence of management quality. Fourth is transparency and risk visibility. No serious donor expects perfection, obviously. So we expect honesty. Organizations that surface their own data limitation, anomalies, or failures build more trust than those that present flawless reports. Better data system makes it easier to track, explain, and then own discrepancies. That it reduces perceived risk, which directly affect funding decision. Fifth here is granularity and traceability. When we can drill down from national figures to state figures to ward level and also the district level, and then even at the community level, that's the primary level, and the number still holds. Confidence increases significantly across this level. So it tells us your data is not just aggregated for reporting. It is basically built for from the ground up. So that traceability is what allows us to believe your scale is real, not inflated. Next is efficiency and value for money. This is where data becomes a strategic asset. If you can show cost per beneficiary, cost per treatment, or cost per outcome, and then benchmark that over time or against similar programs, you move from we did good work to we use resources optimally. So organizations that cannot link financial data to programmatic results struggle here. Next is alignment between narrative and data. When your story matches your numbers without contradiction, it reduces cognitive friction from the reviewer. When I have to reconcile inconsistencies myself, basically for me, your case is weak, regardless of how strong the narrative sound. A practical contract makes this clearer. Two NGOs, let's say, for example, two NGOs apply for continued funding. Both of them report similar coverage rates. One provides disaggregated data, explains denominator, sources, shows where performance dipped and how it was corrected, and links result to cost efficiency. Meanwhile, the other just provide aggregated figures, minimal explanation, and no visibility into how challenges were handled. Even if the top line numbers are identical, basically the first organization is far more likely to secure more funding because of the risk of backing them is lower, and the probability of consistent delivery is higher because you have a true picture, a true story of how they get to where they are. So better data doesn't just support your case, it reshapes it. It shifts basically the conversation from trust me to verify me because there are evidences there. And in funding decisions, the organization that can be verified will also, will almost always, in almost all cases, outperform the one that simply sounds convincing. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Like I've never really heard a lot, particularly about how funders think, and how these decisions are made. So for me it's really interesting hearing that. And I think one of the things you mentioned that got me thinking, like, wow, so even if you have like really spanking clean data, if it's not backed by evidence and all of that, it will be termed as weak, which is a real eye-opener as well. And I think it just goes to show that reporting data is not like I don't know how I'm going to describe it. It's not an exercise that you just want to do quickly within a week. You have to have been collecting this data over time. I remember when I used to work for a non-profit here in the UK, and because I was always out in the community doing my work, and we didn't really have any systems at the time, everything was on Excel and just different places. When my manager would tell me, oh dude, it's time to report to the council for the next funding, I'll be scrambling for a week trying to, and it's incredibly stressful, trying to do that, because that you're competing with so many other NGOs as well that are competing for the same funding, So yeah, really good what you've just said there. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Abdullahi, for that eye opener. Now I'm going to come to you, Joseph, and I think what I want you to do, Joseph, if you don't mind, is, just speak again from the point of view of Hans. Ursula mentioned earlier about readiness. I know we had a lot of back and forth conversations with you guys. You aligned your processes, we defined them, we mapped them, and all of that. Even before we started having the conversation about Salesforce, we have to map out the process in terms of what you needed for finance, what you needed for HR, for program management, for beneficiaries, all of that. I would like you to talk a little bit about that. And then I have another question, which is, what does transparency in impact reporting actually look like, on the ground for an M&E team? So obviously you being, the head of M&E, and of course you are involved in the Hans Salesforce implementation. What I would love for you to do is talk about that implementation from the point of view of what Ursula mentioned earlier about readiness and all of that. But then now tell me, from an M&E officer, now that you are using the system, how are you seeing it being really beneficial for your team? How is it preparing you to be able to report to your funders when the time comes?
Thank you very much, Bam. Transparency is one of the most important value to donors. And as an M&E in the field, when we talk about transparency in reporting, it is important to keep it simple. Transparency means that what we report truly reflects what is happening on the ground. It means we follow clear processes when collecting and reviewing data. And very importantly, we don't hide challenges. Fadal mentioned earlier that transparency is very, very important, especially to donors. And for us, whenever it comes to reporting, we do not hide challenges. We report both successes and areas that need improvement. Because in reality, no program is perfect. But when you are open about your data, when people can see how your numbers were generated and understand them, it builds trust. And that trust is what sustains partnership over time with donors. So for us, one of the practical instances we've had where transparency in reporting has really helped is when we conduct mass drug administration. I've been using this as an example because that's one of the key activities that we actually implement in Hans with regards to donor funding. So when we carry out campaigns, we report this data to donors, and at the end of the day, there is an independent survey that is carried out to actually verify the authenticity of this data. It is called coverage evaluation survey. So you've actually implemented, you've collected your data, you've reported that data with coverages to the donor. So when this coverage evaluation survey is conducted, what they do is that they verify the coverages that you've reported. Are they statistically the same or not? And when they are the same, it shows that, yes, you've actually done the work really. And this is what we've been able to achieve with the help of digitization, because with the digitization of our processes, especially on Salesforce, it has improved the way we implement activities, and it has also given us clear visibility into what is really happening in the field. Because imagine you are implementing MDA campaigns across 5,000 communities, and you are targeting let's say over 5 million people to actually treat. It's really a very huge data set. And imagine you having a system that gives you clear vision into what is really happening, where there are issues in the field, and you can be able to make informed decisions in real time to address those issues. That in a way improves the quality of data you get. And at the end of the day, when there is even an independent assessment of that work that you've done, you will be rest assured that what you've done would actually be verified. And it will be accepted. So that is what we've been able to achieve so far with the digitization of our processes. And I believe that most NGOs on this call can also tap into that, and you would see more like a very, very significant transformation in the way you work, because it will give you, as in, real insight into what you've been doing. Before now, our monitoring and supervision was actually with the use of paper tools. We had checklists on paper, and when we go to the field to monitor, we actually document everything. Even if there are issues, we document it on paper, and at the end of the day, when we come back, it's really difficult for someone to just pick everything, type it into the system, and more like analyze it, and for us to see where there are issues. So it takes a lot of time trying to analyze more like this data from paper. But with the help of Salesforce and with other with the digitization of our processes, we've been able to see those issues in real time and address those issues in real or near real time. And it has really improved the way we work and built trust also with our donors.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I think the other thing I was just going to quickly add to that as well, and I'm sure, you agree with me when I say, the fact that, Salesforce, with Salesforce, you can have it on your mobile phone. So it doesn't matter whether you're on the road, say, for example, traveling from Kano to Sokoto or wherever, you can be doing your work either on your mobile phone or your tablet or your laptop, as long as you have access to the internet. The same goes for even when you're on the field. And I think, we went through this when we did your implementation, the fact that even if you're going to the field and you're going to a completely remote location where there's no internet service, Salesforce allows you to turn on this offline capability on the platform. So on your mobile phone, you can turn on the offline capability. You can open the records of the people that you want to capture data for, so that when you go to that remote location, even though there's no access to internet, you can still capture data. And then the moment you come to an area where there's internet, the information just gets downloaded. So to Ame's point, this is really critical. Imagine, I can't even just imagine in my head, like taking a notebook to the field and capturing information and then thinking, when I go back, I'll have to now sit down and type that into a computer to be able to make sense of it. Whereas actually on a mobile device, you can just capture that information there and then. And even before you get to the office, people that need to analyze the data can already be analyzing it. By the time you get back, all the metrics that you need is just waiting for you. So I think it's an absolute no-brainer, having a solution like this. Right. I think we're making really good progress on time. We're almost there. But what I wanted to do, and I feel really sad. I feel like I'm going to truncate the process, because I feel like we're having almost like a family conversation here, right? I'm really enjoying this, by the way, and hopefully this is not the last one. We're going to do more of this, as a series. But what I was going to say is, Ursula, I'm sure you have a lot of things that you probably want to add. So I want to give everybody, the opportunity to kind of just give some final points before we open the floor for any questions that may exist. So Ursula, if you want to go first, just any final thoughts. I know, when myself and you have spoken in the past, I know you've mentioned about some kind of documentation that can potentially help NGOs, and I think we've curated something. So if you want to talk about that, we can then share that with the team later on. So please, just the floor is open to you. Give us some final thoughts, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, I think the work that nonprofits need to do is absolutely critical. Full stop. And we need to put every bit of our best foot forward in whatever shape and form that needs to look like. And it's quite a loaded comment, because, yes, use technology, use Salesforce. It's going to revolutionize what you do. It is going to completely change the game in terms of what your outcome and your vision and your dream and your impact needs to be. But take the advantage of what technology can do for you as a person as well, in terms of helping you. Salesforce can help you have real fit for purpose skills. As I said, everybody's invited, everybody's welcome. We have tried to make accessibility for each and every one of you that much easy. Sometimes it is a little bit, overwhelming in terms of what you've got access to, and it's like, where on earth do I start? But I think, what we're trying to do, with these conversations, with the beautiful comments and the incredible, rich experience that you've heard throughout tonight, especially from our other panelists, so important is it's the power of us. Apart from excuse the pun, because it's also the power of us in terms of the licensing that we do give to nonprofits. But we are as strong as the weakest link. And so I really want to underline the power of knowledge sharing. I want to underline the importance of being able to access information which is freely available to you, and that we are empowered as a community in Africa to be able to access these things that we've been given, so that we can be and we can derive and we can live the dreams that we want to, in terms of our communities and the impact that we want to see. So for me, it's please, hook in with the different ear, hook in with the different eye in terms of what you're looking at. Know that this is about relevancy and around the future of what nonprofits need to be doing and where you are going. You are invited to be part of this process. Open up your hearts and minds to the learning and to everything that is made available and accessible to you, and to please just go for it. Join your community groups, get involved, and most importantly, to celebrate people like you, Bam, and the rest of your team on this call, is because, this is the things, these are the things that make all the difference in the world. These are the things that are going to change people's lives, are going to change the trajectory of our continent and everything that we want to see. So, for me, it's the door is open. We've chatted about how do we give more information to you, how do we really hold your hands and make it accessible to you. But, I think the most important thing for me is it's such a privilege to have been part of the start of this conversation, and I'm really looking forward to the many, many other conversations and beautiful knowledge nuggets that we're going to be able to share with you, so that you can all really, really derive and as I say, reach the vision and the dreams that you want to for the impact of your respective communities. Thank you, Bam.
Wow. Well, thanks very much, Ursula. Much appreciated. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion. You're always a trailblazer for us. So yeah, absolutely great to have you on board as well. I will go to you then, Abdullahi. Any final comments? And then after that, I'll come to you, Ahmed, and we can just leave the floor for people to ask any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Bam. Thank you, Ursula, for that closing. It's really amazing listening to you. So to close, the real lessons from working inside donor-funded programs is that data is not an administrative output. It's a backbone of credibility. So every funding decision, every continuation of support, and every scale of opportunity ultimately rests on one question. Funders are consistently asking, even when it is not stated explicitly, can we rely on what we are seeing here when pressure is high, timeliness are tight, and no one is polishing the numbers? Basically, organizations that earn long-term trust are not necessarily those with perfect results. Like I've mentioned earlier, they are the ones whose data can be followed from the field, that's at the community level, to the final report without breaks in logic, where definitions remain stable under scrutiny, and where inconsistencies are not hidden but explained and are corrected. That level of integrity signals something deeper than performances. It signals control, honesty, and operational maturity. So the gap between strong and weak organization is really about efforts. It's not about discipline and how data is defined. collected, verified, and used. Weak systems produce reports that look clean, but collapse under questioning. You know, when you start questioning some data, they actually just go down. So strong systems produce data that may show imperfections, but those imperfections are visible, understood, and acted upon. That is what makes them believable. In the end, funders are not just investing in interventions, they are investing in systems that can think with evidence, respond with speed, and prune impact without hesitation. Data is what makes that possible. Without it, programs rely on narratives, which is something we don't really want. With it, they end trusts. And in this space, trust is not given, it is built repeatedly through consistency, transparency, and the courage to let evidence speak, even when it is inconvenient. Just like BAM, Sitivers work with hands, and they have proven beyond reasonable doubts they are a reliable organization to work with. That's why that relationship has been for long. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Abdullahi. Like I mentioned earlier, we haven't met yet. I think we only met like probably a week ago when we started talking online, but honestly, I've learned so much from just conversing with you, and I'm really looking forward to when we'll have the opportunity to meet face to face. So thank you very much for coming on board. Thank you so much for some really wonderful and great contributions as well. Thank you. So Ame, I'll just let you go. Finally, then after that, we can open the floor for anyone who has a question to ask.
Okay, thank you, Bam. Let me close with a simple thought. Good data is not just about reporting what you've done. It helps you understand what is working and what is not working and what you need to do better. And Salesforce is actually a platform that can provide you with verifiable data. Everything that we've mentioned here today, Salesforce is a solution to it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. I think I saw Ayo just put his hands up. I think that was very, very timely. Is it Ayo? Kenneth? Kenneth, do you want to... I saw your hands up. Do you have a question? I think... okay. Sorry, just one sec. Shadrach, do you want to go first, actually?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Okay. Bam, just before they start asking their questions, the speakers have spoken a lot about technology and Salesforce in particular. So perhaps maybe some of the audience from different organizations have questions, or maybe they want to see a demo of how Salesforce work real time. I think we have a simple form where they can just put in their information, then we can reach out to them. So perfect. That they can have time to fill that. So Sylvia can put the link in the chat box. You can go ahead and ask their questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just to emphasize again, if you haven't dropped your email, just in case you want us to keep in touch with you, to help you onboard yourselves onto Salesforce, like Osler's mentioned, I think Osler's are actually putting something in the chat as well in terms of how do you get those 10 free licenses. We can help you in terms of doing that application if you need to, but the steps are very straightforward. But also, if you want to learn more about Salesforce as a technology, we can absolutely handhold you. But like I mentioned earlier, we're trying to create like a non-profit community within Nigeria. And if you want to be a part of that, please feel free to drop your email here. We'll be helping and supporting you, particularly in terms of how you can use the power of Salesforce to enable yourselves, but other technology as well. So please feel free to drop your email in there. We'll fill that form as well. So I'll leave the floor open for questions. I think, Kenneth, I saw your hands up. Did you want to go? Do you have a question? If not, any other person, feel free to put your hands up.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Kenneth.
Hi, Kenneth.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
All right. I'm speaking from Kaduna in Nigeria. Yes, I want to ask a question regarding to what the NGOs are doing, looking at what we are going through presently with the energy crisis. What is the NGO and what are we, how can we improve looking at cleaner forms of energy to enable us have a more sustainable, because people that are vulnerable are the ones being affected by what is happening presently. So how can the NGOs come into play assist?
Great. Well, that's a really good question that you've just asked there. I'm not sure if any of the NGOs, well, the guys on the panel, and I'm not sure if any of you deal with energy and all of that. I know that there are specific NGOs that deal with that, but please, I'll let you guys, if any of you has a response, please feel free to add to that. Okay, Ahmed, you want to go?
Okay, yes. Thank you very much, Kenneth, for the wonderful question. For us, in the NGO space, different NGOs have different projects they implement and different thematic areas they work on. There are several NGOs that their thematic area cuts across energy, and there are certain activities that they deliver on. So those activities, now, the output of those activities is what we digitize. Like, we digitize the entire process on Salesforce, for example, and we monitor everything, we collect data, and we ensure that at the end of the day, there's accountability within the system. But Salesforce, this webinar is particularly on how we use Salesforce to demonstrate evidence to our donors. Particularly, it's not like a donor. It's not a webinar that is centered around donation or how we intervene for different problems in the communities. It is actually on how we use data to demonstrate accountability to our donors within the NGO space. So I believe outside this call, we can actually link you up with NGOs that work within the energy space, and maybe you could have more like further conversations with them, and maybe you take it up from there. But this is more of more like a platform that provides evidence to donors for the funding that have been given.
Yeah.
I don't know if Abdullah can add to that.
Yes, thank you, Joseph. I think I will conclude from your statement by saying, by working with government partners, Sightsavers promotes sustainable, inclusive energy approaches that improve service delivery, reduces health risk linked to energy poverty, and ensure people with disability and marginalized populations are not left behind during our treatment. Even let's look at the MMDP, which is managing persons with disability as a result of lymphatic filariasis. Through evidence-based planning and strong data system, Sightsavers helps ensure energy solutions contribute directly to better health outcomes and long-term development impact. And I think it will be good for us to, further have this discussion with Kenneth outside this meeting, and then throw more light with him and get to engage more with him. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much. I think I saw Kenneth dropped his email as well. So Kenneth, I'll connect you with the guys, and then maybe you can expand on that conversation outside of this meeting. Okay. Thank you very much. And I can see Mary. Mary, your hands are up. Did you have a question? Please feel free to go.
Okay, thank you, Bamnan.
Yeah,
okay.
a mouthful, I know. You did well.
Yeah. So, and thank you, Usla. I know that the names are difficult, but my concern is I'm a Salesforce admin, and currently I would like if someone can offer me an opportunity maybe to volunteer and help these organizations fill these gaps. I would also appreciate maybe a volunteership, an internship, or something.
Okay. Where are you based, Mary?
I'm in Kenya.
Oh, you're in Kenya. Okay, that's fine. Reach out to us. Okay. I think our emails are there. If you see any Dkloud email, just reach out to us through that. Okay.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Mary, and on that point, you've obviously got your admin certification.
Yeah, I have the admin certification.
Have you got any of the non-profit certifications?
Not yet.
Okay, so I think there's a great opportunity because for the non-profit certifications, you need to have admin as a prerequisite. So I would really suggest that you go to Trailhead and, under industries, you'll pick up the non-profit certifications. And I really want to encourage you to obviously get into the specifics around non-profit. It's there. And I think that's going to really be a real step in the right direction. It also means now that you are specializing in a particular industry. So I really would love you to do that. And obviously through these efforts of building the community, building the ecosystem, specifically around nonprofits, because, every nonprofit can definitely do with somebody like you, Mary. So, that's exactly what we're trying to achieve by having these webinars and obviously the actions that, that derive out of this. So please, as a first step, get yourself into the nonprofit, specifics. And that's going to be a good start. And most importantly, watch the space.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for highlighting that, Ursula. And I completely agree with that as well. I think there's like I mentioned earlier, we will build a community here, hopefully. And you never know, Mary, like Ursula said, learn or specialize. Yeah, if you specialize in nonprofit, there will definitely be opportunities for you, because if many of these organizations within Africa, start to use proper technology, they will need help, right, from people with your expertise to kind of come and help them out. So yeah, thank you for that. Sylvia, I see your hands are up as well.
Yes. So for me, I just want to read Rukaya's question. I don't know if she's here, but she dropped the question earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, so she said, "Good evening all. Thank you for this insightful topic. My question is, what is the impact of Salesforce on program implementation, such as the neglected tropical disease?"
I'm not sure, Ame or Abdullah, if one of you wants to go for that, and I'm sure you've touched on that through the course of the conversation, but if you can just say one or two comments about that, I think that would be great. Then I'll come to you, Henry. Ame, do you want to take that one?
Okay.
The question from Rukaya.
Okay. Yeah. So so far, in terms of the impact of Salesforce on more like program implementation, especially for neglected tropical diseases. Neglected tropical diseases is one of our core area of implementation in HANS, and it has really improved the way we work, because in neglected tropical diseases, we carry out mass drug administration campaigns where we actually administer drug to millions of people in endemic communities, and actually ensuring that you get quality, ensuring that these medicines, these essential medicines, get to every community and it gets to every person that is supposed to go to is not a very easy task. You can only achieve that when you have more like a system that enables you to be able to track effectively. And that is what Salesforce has actually helped us with, because we are currently using Salesforce, and it has given us enhanced visibility into our processes with regards to how we are actually reaching these endemic communities with these essential NTD medicines. we can easily see how many people we are reaching, whether we are achieving the minimum treatment coverage, where there are issues of refusals and so on, and it gives us we can be able to like resolve these issues in their real time and ensure that everybody or anybody that is at risk of these diseases get these essential medicines and are free from NTDs, and we're able to contribute to the WHO NTD roadmap of 2030, which is to ensure that we eliminate an NTD as a disease of public health importance. And Salesforce has really moved us towards that direction.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much, Ame.
I'll come to you, Henry. Thanks for waiting.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Bamnan, and the team from Dkloud, the panel, as well as Asla. I am really very grateful for this space. I was excited to see a space that is being created to direct help to organizations that really need it the most. It's a space that touches me a bit deeply because I am very interested in it as well. Personally, I'm based in Kampala, Uganda, where I'm also trying to walk a few NGOs through support that they can get with platforms like this. And I have a question specific to, I know Asla mentioned about the Power of Us program. While I noticed from the interactions I've had, I know there is quite a bit of uptake or need for the technology. A quick thing we run into here is on the side of Salesforce when it comes to actually trying to see how some of these NGOs can benefit from those licenses. I know right now around us, we don't have any regional office or anything like that where we can try and extend these nonprofits to where they can get some help. And I don't know if this is the right space for me to bring it up, where we could have a conversation away from this where we can see how to support some of the NGOs that are really interested. Some are a bit into that pipeline, but we can't seem to get communication from the other side of programs such as the Power of Us program. So if this is the right place, I hope it is. I would love to have an opportunity to see how to support or to be part of this entire system, how to support some of the NGOs just here local to me, because there's quite a bit of them, and there's quite a gap there.
Perfect. I think, Oscar, I'm going to defer this one to you, but you're definitely in the right place. So, Oscar, we'll take that question.
Henry, thank you for your question. And I think, that's exactly what we're trying to do through community. We've got a number of different initiatives that I think we can sharpen our pencils on, or, the legal entity for Africa is only, although, I think some of our customers in Africa have been using Salesforce for 19 years. So it's not like we've just come in, but the legal entity is 4 years old. And one of the things that we are trying to do is really build the ecosystem. And in the true spirit of Salesforce, ecosystem and community is exactly how we're going to do that. So first and foremost, why are we so supportive of this conversation and the webinars is important. Trailblazer community groups is another way. And, I literally just work with the community groups in South Africa, but we had the opportunity to establish more nonprofit community groups throughout Africa. So there's an opportunity there. But the other thing which I do have, and is that we've also got I've got global workforce development partners, which are, and ALX is one of them, which is sort of a partner that we've got in terms of building capability and building skills. And, you know, one of the things that we could explore, and we've got different hubs, ALX has got different hubs. We've probably got about 3,200 alumni just in the Salesforce that have got, you know, at least 2 or 3 certifications. And one of the things I'm thinking out of the box here, because that's what we need to be doing, is, you know, how do we help to establish community, Salesforce, Trailblazer, community groups for nonprofits in respective territories throughout the continent. And it literally is about working, and I'm working with ALX at the moment in terms of what we do with those alumni. And, you know, the fact that we've got access, you know, through me into the Salesforce engine is really important. So whether it's our account executives, you know, we can be able to pull and we'd be able to bring in, you know, whatever is necessary. So Henry, what I'm saying is we can dream it together and we can create it together. We haven't got much, and that's why the opportunity for us to strengthen our base as the nonprofit community is all that more important. And it's through people like yourself and everybody else that's joined this call. And, you know, the fact that we've still got so many people on the call is a real testament to the commitment of this community. And so all I want to say is that you have our commitment, and we will work with BAM and the team and others to see how we can do that, you know. So, you know, what we do also need is the champions. You know, a big part of the Salesforce ecosystem is what we call champions, is, you know, the foot soldiers that, you know, people we can work with that can go and do the impact that they need to. But, you know, for us as Africans, we're very versatile, we're very resilient, we're very creative. And I think the invitation for me to everybody here is for us to think together of how we can become a stronger African Salesforce community so that we can absolutely arrive at the outcomes that we want to for our nonprofit efforts. So it's not a straight answer, but I think most importantly, we have the will and the commitment to work this out together with you, Henry, and others.
Wow, amazing. Thanks very much, Ursula. And I just wanted to just say, you know, I completely support everything that Ursula has mentioned. You know, we're all here. We can help and support any way we can. Just reach out, stay in touch. You know, happy to have a conversation with you, you know, in terms of specifics. If we need to jump on a smaller call with me, yourself, Ursula, and others, you know, more than happy to do that. And let's see how we can champion, you know, what you're trying to do as well. More than happy to do that. Absolutely. Okay.
There's a lot of good work, that goes on in Uganda. You know, I mean, one of our biggest customers is obviously, you know, one of the banks, the Standard Bank Group. You know, Uganda is, you know, I've got one of 3 certified Salesforce instructors, Martha, who's based in Uganda. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many different ways that we can think out of the box and how we build the Ugandan community. I can tell you it's literally me reaching out to Martha to say, Martha, there's a world that waits for you in the nonprofit space. And I can tell you she would be 100% keen. And she's a certified instructor. So yeah, it's just about bringing all the information together to help.
Yeah, Martha is good. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything shared.
Thanks very much for joining, Henry. Much appreciated. Now, I think I'll probably take one more question. Ursula, if you don't mind, I'm going to burden you with this one. But I think this one is definitely right up your street. So it's a question from Rosemary. It says, how would you recommend NGOs balance adopting new technology with the realities of limited technical expertise on their team? And I think you've just kind of highlighted that right now. So basically, you're talking about NGOs that have a limited technology skill within their team or whatever. How would you recommend that they implement something, a technology like Salesforce, or how should they manage that, if that makes sense?
I think the most important thing is we actually call it, we're living in a mega trend when it comes to education. So I'm going to take a step back from the Salesforce space specifically and talk about the fact that we have got access to educational resources that we've never ever had before. So, the first thing for me is that, broader than just Trailhead, because Trailhead is a type of a MOOC, a massive open online course. The fact is you have access to some of the best institutions in the world that have got available courses and sometimes qualifications for free. So when I made the comment earlier about, start to create this new love of learning, about being a fit for purpose, building fit for purpose skills, I think my first and foremost, request and ask of everybody on this call is to start to create and start to activate that resilient and that curiosity sort of muscle that you have. The information available to us and accessible to us in the broader technology space, from data literacy to AI fluency to deep deep architectural to deep technical expertise, is there. So my request to you is start to understand what you have available. You literally need access to a device and internet connection. And so the first and most important step is for you to change your relationship with how you learn and to become a lifelong learner and to be able to know that you have got all the resources at your disposal, Salesforce and to start to make friends with that and start to really start to discover. And that is the first and the most important thing. If we look at the number one competency that we need to have in this day and age on the 30th of April in 2026, now and going forward, it's for us to develop this ability for us to become lifelong learners and to understand that we have access to information and knowledge that we have never ever had before, and to maximize on that and to just go for it. So that's your first and your most important step. So the fact that there are limitations doesn't matter anymore. It's about us being creative, and it's about us building this new relationship of learning and creating that awareness and that learning culture within your organization.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ursula. I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you to everyone who has graced this event. You've all contributed massively, and it's greatly appreciated. I just want to assure you guys that, this is definitely not the last. We're going to have this same panel again, in the very near future. We'll probably add more people to the conversation, but I think, like Ursula and the team has mentioned, I think we just need to keep these conversations going. People just need to know that there's a place where you can get help. And I believe if we all keep doing our part, it will only become a better ecosystem for all of us. So at this point, I think I'm just going to like to call it a day. But before I do that, I was just wondering if you guys would be kind enough to just hit the emojis and all of that. And I'll just quickly take a screenshot so that we can put that up on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your weekend as well. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, all. Thank you. Thanks, Ursula. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.